Good afternoon. You're watching Business World Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Wednesday. It is indeed Hump Day Wednesday for the local stock. No reprieve for the index today. It was on a downtrend from the get-go. Share slumped 1.4% to 6,236.40. That's following the GDP contraction yesterday. If investors picked up stocks yesterday after the slump today, traders dumped shares all throughout session. But for Sun Life's Mike Enriquez, it's no longer about GDP, but about COVID cases and vaccine progress. He said in this morning's broadcast that market will continue to be directionless and hovering at a very narrow range between 6,200 to 6,500 until vaccine supply improves. The index today, if you try to take a look at the 7-month chart here, you'd see here this is the lowest level yet for the PSEI in close to 7 months since hitting around 6,249 back in October. Now, one of the worst drags being SM Prime. Try to take a look at our individual performers here today. SM Prime is one of the day's worst performers over concerns that a rebalancing in the MSCI will result in weighing cuts in some of the country's blue chips. Papa Securities' Manny Cruz said SM Prime is also getting dumped as its valuation relative to its average 5-year hasn't dropped as much as other property players. Again, SM Prime here is down 4.3%, now at around also you have here around 32 pesos and 50 centavos. Other heavyweights here that dropped in today's trading day. You have SM Investments also in the red, as well as Ayala Corporation and JG Summit. All three stocks here declining by almost 1.8%. Only a handful of stocks in the positive territory. You have URC gaining 1.5%, as well as lenders BPI and Metro Bank. But while the main index is shedding, one stock from the all shares is taking flight despite some grim news here. I'm talking about Philippine Airlines, which is reportedly seeking to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the U.S. That's according to sources here. In its clarificatory statement, it said that it is considering all available options, including a comprehensive restructuring plan. But the flag carrier is committing to continued operations, including vaccine transport and OFW repatriation. It says as the market recovers, they will continue to increase international and domestic flights. As for the restructuring plan, no approach yet has been approved. While today, as you can see right here, soared close to 0.9%, now at 5 pesos and 86 centavos a share. But it's a different story here for our budget carrier, Cebu Pacific. It has already copped 40.5 billion pesos from 3 fundraising rounds to help it address COVID disruptions. That includes 16 billion pesos from a term loan facility, 12.5 billion pesos from convertible preferred shares, and $250 million via convertible bonds. The budget carrier said it's part of a broader proactive and comprehensive crisis response, which started last year, including operational adjustments. Cebu Pacific today, though, landing lower, decreasing by 0.3% to 48 pesos and 15 centavos a share. Now let's end our market review here with some earnings report, this time from Pure Gold. Net income increasing double digits here, 14.6% to over 2 billion pesos, as well as operating income also climbing 11.4%, despite net sales decreasing close to 8% to 37.7 billion pesos. 72% of their profit coming from their Pure Gold stores network, while 28% coming from SNR membership warehouse and pizza outlets. Despite those numbers, you have Pure Gold joining the sell-off in today's session. As you can see here, it's down close to 2.8% to 32 pesos and 95 centavos a share. Now, here are other stories from the corporate front. The Gokongweis family is taking slice of Shakey's investing 1.25 billion pesos for a 9% ownership stake in the pizza company. Shakey's disclosed to the stock exchange that starting June, JE Holdings, the Gokongweis private investment company, will join the Po family as top shareholder. JE Holdings chairman and president Lance Gokongweis, who says is personally a fan of Shakey's, will be up for election as a member of the board. Shakey's is continuing its store expansion this year and is on track to hit its target of 30 new stores this 2021. The company reported a second consecutive quarter of positive net income at 29 million pesos in the first quarter, and as the company relies on delivery and takeout sales. Pizza shares rose more than 6% on Wednesday's trade to 7 pesos and 93 centavos apiece. Now, Dito Telecommunity is launching its services in Metro Manila by next week. The third telco will be expanding its reach to the NCR after its commercial launch in Cebu and Davao last March. The company also announced expansion in 15 other locations in central and southern Luzon earlier this month. Dito currently offers unlimited call and text between Dito subscribers and other mobile networks, as well as video over LTE, among other features. The China-backed telco owned by Davao businessman Dennis Uy announced it may start offering home broadband services by next year. Dito shares, however, in the red this hump day at 9 pesos and 16 centavos apiece, down 3.6%. Pre-pandemic fuel demand may likely make a comeback next year, according to projections by Pilipinas Shell. Pilipinas Shell executives said this is if government's health measures progress as promised. Company officials note that energy demand, vehicle sales, and household spending are closely tied to economic performance. Pilipinas Shell reported a net loss of 16 billion pesos last year, mainly due to one-time charges coming from the conversion of its Batangas refinery, as well as the drop in global crude oil prices. The company expects to save around 700 million pesos this year once it's done turning the refinery into an import hub. Shares of Pilipinas Shell likewise still down for a third straight day at 21 pesos and 75 centavos each. It's been more than a year since schools all over the country shifted to online or remote learning. How's the pandemic affecting the education sector, and what's the current status of Philippine education standards? To discuss more about this, we have on the show Businessworld columnist Andrew Masigan. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Hi, Jess. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all to the viewers of this program.
All right, so numbers don't lie. And in your column, you pointed out the results of the PISA assessment on Filipino students. What are the numbers saying?
Well, okay. First, what is PISA? PISA is the Program of International Students Assessment, and this is a global assessment program that is done every year, and this is sponsored by the group of nations called OECD. So the group of it's like the group of most wealthy nations who monitor educational standards across 79 countries across the globe, both rich and poor countries. No? So this happens every 3 years, and the last time it happened was in 2018. So this bit of information is quite outdated. All right. Well, not really outdated, but it's still current, but it should be updated this year. Okay. But the results were not promising, Jess. It paints a very horrible picture about the state of Philippine education.
And can you nuance that for us? Are there any particular segments here which is really a cause for concern?
Yeah, the whole educational system, Jess, is a cause for concern. Okay, let me give you some numbers. Okay, so let's talk about reading. All right, remember 79 nationalities were assessed here, and among 79 countries, Filipino children, Filipino children were assessed 79 over 79. In other words, dead last among children from all over the world in terms of comprehending concepts and being able to distinguish fact from fiction or opinion from fact. You get it? So in reading, we're dead last. In mathematics, we are second to the last. In science, we are 71 over 79. So it's a really grim picture, no, Jess? And what is the ramification of this? It means that the Filipino children or the Filipino youth are the least future ready in the world, and that's not very promising for a country that is still developing.
Mhm. But also looking at the study, I think it was conducted back in 2018. And has there been enough adjustment, especially considering that was pre-pandemic, but since last year, schools have primarily diverted to online learning. So how is that going to compound the problem?
Look, I'm not optimistic, Jess. I'm not optimistic because the Department of Education has not really upgraded or uh, or adjusted their standards of learning according to the digital space that we're operating in now. In other words, the whole world has evolved. The whole world has boosted their standards. The whole world has changed their medium of instruction. But the Department of Education seems to be dragging its feet. No, look at their website and you'll see what their main thrusts are. It's to review the K to 12 program,
Mhm.
to increase standards, whatever that means, and to engage stakeholders. I mean, these are motherhood statements, no? But at the end of the day, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And judging from where we are, I'm not optimistic.
And how?
I'll
Go
tell
ahead.
you why else, Jess. I'll tell you why else I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic because even among our private schools, which are supposed to be among the best,
Mhm.
sorry, where our best and brightest go. Our private schools, Assumption, St. Paul, blah 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 blah. Okay, they're supposed to have higher standards than public schools because they are enabled by private funding, tuition fees, right? But even in private schools, in science, for instance, we're number 72 out of 79. In mathematics, 73 out of 79. And in reading a little bit better, 48 out of 79. So, all in all, even our private school children are in the bottom 10% of the world.
Mhm. How far do you think this is going to set back this current generation of students, especially moving forward as they go to college or even as they move to the workforce?
Okay, you know what? It's going to reflect in many, many ways. It's going to reflect in mediocrity in governance because we'll have less capable children who will be eventually becoming our leaders. We'll have poorly run institutions. We will have a low success rate in entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
and we will have slow technology adoption. And that's all because of capacity, mental capacity. Jess, I want to point out another thing. All right. So there was also an IQ test conducted by a separate agency, okay, to determine the average IQs of children in the across the globe, 79 countries again, no? And it turns out that the Philippines, the average IQ of the Philippine student is 86.
Mhm.
86. Okay, let's put context here. The average IQ of a Singaporean is 108. The average IQ of a Vietnamese is 94. The average IQ of a person of a Malaysian is 92. So the Filipino has the lowest IQ in ASEAN.
Mhm. So, what can be done for the Philippines to at least catch up?
Uh, it needs the educational system has to be broken down and rebuilt from the ground up.
Mhm.
And you know what? The perennial excuse of the depth ed, which is we lack classrooms, we lack funds, we lack training the teachers, that doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold water because countries like Myanmar, countries like Cambodia, and countries like Laos have been able to advance and modernize their educational system with much less. And the depth ed has has cornered 32, I believe 32% of the national budget with very little to show. So you know what? I don't know. I'm really not impressed. I'm certainly not impressed with the current secretary. Uh,
So,
who's very little to show.
What reforms should be done by the education department, especially when it comes to handling the budget? I mean, like what you mentioned earlier. I mean, the agency has a lion's share of the yearly national budget. Where are they going wrong when it comes to managing funds here?
It's the upliftment of standards and adoption of technology. That's the missing link. Because up to now, whereas other countries have adopted completely new methods of learning and tracks of learning, we're still using the track of learning from the post-war era with a little bit of improvements here and there. So we've never really revolutionized the educational system. Maybe some private schools have, no? Some progressive private schools have, but certainly local schools, private and public, are way, way behind. So this is something that I think the public should consider a national emergency, because what we're seeing here is that if we don't do anything, the next generation of Filipinos will be relegated as manual laborers because we're the dumbest of all. Sorry to be direct, but that's the truth.
Mhm. Now, what would probably come out of that declaration of a national emergency when it comes to education? What are we expecting from that?
Well, we have to treat it like a national emergency. In other words, we have to expedite reforms. We have to change the personalities behind. We have to revolutionize the systems and maybe look at how the sources and uses of funds again, because clearly it's not being spent efficiently.
All right.
Again, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. But to be fair, not to be fair, there's going to be another PISA evaluation this year, and let's see, no, let's see. But I'm really not optimistic.
Not too hopeful when it comes to that. But thank you very much for your insights and your time this afternoon. Again, Business
Sure.
World columnist Andrew
I'm sorry.
Masigan.
I'm sorry
Yeah.
to your listeners for more bad news. It is.
I think nowadays they're quite used to that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And those are the biggest stories this trading day, May 12, 2021. Catch Business World live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.